Alright, we're going to go over male reproductive. This is going to help you for both lecture and with lab. Now, when we talk about male reproductive, really we need to understand what gonads are. Gonads are going to be the testes in the male. These are what we call your primary organs because they're going to be where we produce gametes, which are sex cells, but it's also where we're going to secrete hormones. So when we talk about organs of the male system, the first thing that we're going to talk about are your primary organs. Your primary organs are always going to be your gonads, both in the male and female. Your gonads in the male are the testes. So your primary organs are gonads. Your primary organs are going to produce gametes, which are sex cells, and it's going to produce hormones. So we have the testes, and there's going to be 2 of those. Now, everything else is considered to be accessory structures. So in the male, we're going to have various ducts that we need to understand. Anytime we talk about ducts, these are going to basically either store sperm or transports sperm or gametes. So a couple of your ducts are going to include the epididymis, there's one on either side of the testes, your ductus deferens, which is also known as your vas deferens, males, your ejaculatory duct, and your urethra. Now we do include the urethra for the male because the urethra is going to carry both urine and semen or sperm with all the stuff mixed in it. So ducts are always going to store or transport the gametes. Now, we also are going to have other accessory glands, which are going to be glands that are going to secrete substances as the sperm is being passed from the testes and out of the male. Your accessory sex organs are going to be your glands. Now, all of these are secondary. They're all accessory. So this is going to include your seminal vesicle, which is a gland. Vesicle literally means it's storing something, just like when we learned the vesicle inside of a cell. The prostate gland, and the bulbourethral gland. These are all going to secrete substances that are going to protect or support the sperm that's produced in your primary organs. Now, your external structures is going to include part of the spermatic cord. The spermatic cord is going to have arteries, vessels, and veins which go to the testes, but we're also going to include the scrotum. Now, there's 2 muscles that are going to control the size and shape of the scrotum called the cremaster and dartos. Sperm actually has to be on the outside of the body, which is the reason why men have testes. And the scrotum has 2 muscles called the cremaster and dartos, which contract and relax so that the sperm can stay warm or, cool off. The penis is considered an external reproductive structures because it's going to assist in delivering the gametes to the female. So what we're going to talk about is first the testes, and then we're going to go over everything that basically is going to help men ejaculate sperm outside of the body. So the first thing I really want to go over is the testes. Now the testes is going to be the site of sperm production. So when we talk about the testes, the place where sperm is going to be produced is going to be called the seminiferous tubules. And your seminiferous tubules are going to have 3 special types of cells that are going to aid in sperm production. So let's look at the testes. Trying to figure out which color I want to use. Now, the testes are going to be your primary organs. Again, these are called gonads. Your primary organs are going to be the site of gamete production and where basically hormones are going to be produced. So when we talk about the male, the hormone being produced is going to be testosterone. So testes are round. They are going to be the site of sperm production and hormone production. Now when we look at the testes is broken down into lobules. Now there's a lot more lobules than I'm gonna draw. So basically you can draw like little squares to represent that it's lobules. Now inside of your lobules is this coiled tube called the seminiferous tubule. Seminiferous tubule. This is the actual site of where sperm is produced. So you have a tube inside each one of these lobules, and this is just a easy picture. The seminiferous tubule is the site of sperm production. It literally is a tube where sperm cells are going to be made. So I want to draw the seminiferous tubule. This is a seminiferous tubule. Now, there are a lot of cells that are inside of the seminiferous tubules. Now there's several seminiferous tubules in each lobule. So I'm going to draw a second one right here. So the site of sperm production is going to occur in these tubes called seminiferous tubules. Now, the testes is our primary sex organ in the male. What makes something a primary sex organ? 2 things. It produces sperm, which are called gametes. And the second thing is it's going to produce hormones. The hormones that it's going to produce is testosterone. So inside of the seminiferous tubules, which you can see, there are going to be different types of cells. This is the site of sperm production, but there are different cells that produce sperm, and there's different cells that produce testosterone. Now, I'm going to ask y'all a word. This is going back to the word roots. What's the word for in between? Inter. So when you take 2 seminiferous tubules, there's going to be cells that are in between the seminiferous tubules called interstitial cells. Now, interstitial cells are also called cells of Leydig or Leydig cells, but these are in between the seminiferous tubules. So I'm going to draw a little nucleus. The cells that are in between the seminiferous tubules are called interstitial cells. Inter meaning between seminiferous tubules. These are also called Leydig cells. Now, your Leydig cells are going to be responsible for producing testosterone. Now, these do have to be activated from your anterior pituitary. So we do have hormones that come from the anterior pituitary that are going to activate these. And the hormone from the anterior pituitary is called luteinizing hormone. So luteinizing hormone are going to stimulate your Leydig cells to produce testosterone whenever a guy is going to go through sexual puberty. So from the anterior pituitary, you produce luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone stimulates your interstitial cells to produce testosterone. Now, the way I always remembered these is LH goes to Leydig cells. So that's where that L comes in handy to know that these are Leydig cells. So that's the first type of cell. So if this is a primary organ, it produces testosterone from your interstitial cells. And now we need to talk about how we produce sperm. So sperm need to be formed inside of the tubule. So the inside of the tubule, when we look at it, literally right here is the lumen. The lumen is the site of sperm. It's a tube. So this is literally just going to be your lumen. I'm not trying to really color code this anyway. I mean, technically you could use blue. The lumen is going to be where sperm are released. So technically, you know, you can draw a little sperm in here. Where the sperm is produced is inside of the seminiferous tubule. So those are little sperm inside of my seminiferous tubules. Now, these actually have to go through meiosis, which is a type of sexual reproduction where these are going to divide from another type of cell, which is called spermatogenic cells. Now, the maturation starts at the outside of the tubule and it works to the inside until it matures into a full-on sperm cell. So, we have a cell that sits on the outside of the lumen. This cell right here is called a spermatogenic cell. Genesis means the beginning. This is a spermatogenic cell. It is also called a spermatogonia. Spermatogonia are like stem cells that are going to basically produce sperm. Or gametes. So technically, the site of sperm production is in the seminiferous tubule. The spermatogonia are going to produce sperm by meiosis, which is sexual reproduction, where this is going to divide into two other cells, and then this one's going to divide until basically you get sperm cell. So spermatogonia undergo like meiosis, and that's how we produce sperm. Meiosis is sexual reproduction. So we have spermatogenic cells, which are going to divide, and then it's going to produce sperm, which is going to go into the lumen. Well, we have one other type of cell. This other type of cell is called a Sertoli cell. A Sertoli cell is literally like a mother cell, and these spermatogenic cells, or these spermatogonia, are going to be all the way around the seminiferous tubule. And we need mother cells. Now, mother cells are going to support, nourish these spermatogenic cells. These are going to be in between. So we could do it over here as well. Here's your spermatogenic cells. This is purple if you're color coding. This is going to make sperm that's going to be produced in the lumen. But in between these cells, we have another type of cell called sustentacular cells. And sustentacular cells have another name as well. See, they all have an AKA. These are also called Sertoli cells. I want you to think of these sustentacular as a mother cell. So these mother cells, I'm just going to draw them in between, are going to nourish and protect the spermatogonias. So literally there's going to be a lot of these, and they're on the outside. They're literally trying to protect these cells. They're mother cells. This is one of the histology slides that you would have. Basically, you can look at this picture and understand what you're looking at. All right, these are called sustentacular cells. AKA Sertoli cells. I call them mother cells, just to help you kind of remember what they do. So these are going to protect and nourish spermatogenic cells. Now, if you think of them as a mother, when you're immature, your mother tells you what to do. So, one of the things that we produce in the anterior pituitary is follicle stimulating hormone. So, in order to start sperm production, your mother cells have to tell your spermatogenic cells to do their job. So, from the anterior pituitary, when we say that we produce follicle stimulating hormone from the anterior pituitary always is going to activate the production of sperm cells. But this is a little bit different. Follicle stimulating hormone is going to activate mother cells. Mother cells then activate spermatogenic cells, which is going to stimulate sperm production. So when we talk about sperm production, we say testes is the primary organ. So we produce sperm through the spermatogenic cells. After the mother cells, or sustentacular cells, or Sertoli cells, you have to remember all these names, basically is going to tell your spermatogenic cells to produce sperm. Now, your interstitial cells are going to be stimulated by luteinizing hormone from the anterior pituitary to produce testosterone. So the site of sperm production is going to occur in the seminiferous tubules. Now, all of the sperm are going to travel in these lumens, basically like an artery, but it's a tubule, and they have to be going to another area. So they go to an area called the ret testes. Now, the ret testes is just where they drain. So they go kind of like right here. that's called the ret testes. Now, there's going to be tubules called efferent tubules that are going to lead out of the sperm, of the testes, and it's going to go to another place which we call the epididymis. So literally, this is where it starts. In the seminiferous tubule, you produce sperm. Let me get a black marker. You produce sperm in the seminiferous tubule. It travels out to the ret testes, R-E-T-E, and then from there, it travels out through efferent tubules, and then it's going to go to another structure which we call the epididymis. So the epididymis is on the outside. So we always start at the testes in the seminiferous tubule, which has these 3 different types of cells. It goes to the ret testes, and then it goes out into the epididymis. So the epididymis is the site where your sperm are going to mature. So to me, it's easier if you start kind of like understanding the anatomy and knowing step by step by step how everything occurs. So literally, we are going to go through the process of sperm production by learning our anatomy. So this is a picture that I'm going to provide for you, so you should print it out. You can always push pause and draw it yourself, but we can start by labeling this picture in particular to learn sperm production and how it goes. Now, to me, I think it's always easier to learn sperm production by learning the anatomy and the step-by-step process, just like learning steps through the heart. We start it somewhere, superior and inferior vena cava and the coronary sinus, and then we worked our way through the heart. So we're going to do the same thing as we talk about sperm production. You can learn the anatomy, and if you learn the steps, then literally you can remember the functions of everything. So this will be good for, the lab practical whenever you have to understand the function where you take notes, or in lecture where you're taking a test, because some of it's going to be question based. So the first thing that we can label on this picture is your testes. Now, you do have 2 pairs of testes. Your testes is right there. That is the site of sperm production. And then the next thing is sperm is going to empty into the next structure, which we call the epididymis. Now, there is an epididymis on either side of the testes. There are 2 testes. And there's your epididymis. So I'm going to give a flow chart. Now, I would take this picture after it's labeled and then basically try to, trace through the steps. If we were in actual lab right now, I would have you show me a model, and you would go through the steps, and you would tell me the whole process of how sperm is produced until you ejaculate it right here at the external urethral orifice. So there's a lot of steps that are going to occur. So you always start at the testes, then you go to the epididymis, and then you're going to follow this pink tube, and then you add the pink plus the yellow to this blue area, which leads into this tube, which is all the urethra. So I'm also going to be writing out a flow chart to explain what's going on. So right now, you should have this picture pulled up or drawn out by yourself to go through it to help you understand it. So the very first thing that I would do for learning sperm production and the anatomy is start right here at the testes. Now, the testes, where is the site of sperm production? The seminiferous tubules. Now, we remembered that the seminiferous tubule has 3 different types of cells. I'm not going to write those on here because I will run out of room. But the spermatogenic cells are going to be what produces sperm cells. That is always going to be step one. Now, from the testes, and we've drew this out, from the testes, the lobules have the seminiferous tubules. They travel to the ret testes, and then they leave through efferent tubules to the epididymis. So I'm going to write epididymis. I'm just going to draw an arrow to represent my flow chart. Now you could color code these as well, but it's really hard for me to fit everything in on marker. So I'm just going to use this black pen. All right, now your epididymis is part of your duct system. So we learned on our first male reproductive thing that the first duct is called the epididymis. Now the epididymis is literally gonna store sperm. That's its job. Literally, this is where sperm sits until a guy is ready to ejaculate. So, while it's storing sperm, sperm has to mature a little bit. So the epididymis is going to secrete glycogen, which is sugar, to help the sperm mature. So, glycogen is sugar. As the sperm are sitting inside of the epididymis, glycogen is going to mature sperm. Sperm has to have time to mature. So that's where we are. The seminiferous tubules of the testes is the site of sperm production. It goes to the epididymis where glycogen is going to be stored to mature sperm. So the only way out is to go through this duct right here. So sperm is literally going up and then it's going to go down. So the next step would be to cover this thing. This right here is part of your duct system. That's why I drew it in pink. Kind of like the seminiferous tubule. I just needed a different color in between. So this structure is called your ductus deferens. It's also called the vas deferens. If you've ever heard of a guy getting a vasectomy, this is literally what's being clipped. If you clip off this tube on either side, then a guy's sperm cannot travel or be ejaculated. That's a vas deferens. A vasectomy is literally to cut and snip these. Now it is reversible. My brother has had this done. He said he didn't like it. He didn't seem too bad. Maybe about a day he had to, take it pretty easy. I heard it is reversible, but I don't think it's that easy to reverse it, but it is reversible. So the ductus deferens is literally going to be a duct, part of the duct system, so that sperm can travel from the testes to the epididymis and literally travel up here so that it can be released into the urethra. So when we talk about this anatomy, this right here is your urinary bladder, and your urethra is going to be the way that urine as well as sperm is going to exit on the male. So the ductus deferens literally is going to transport sperm, and then it has to enter into the urethra by way of this blue structure, which I'm not there yet. So this is your urinary bladder. Now, your urinary bladder is also going to have ureters coming down from the kidneys, so it can bring urine. I'm not drawing these on here, but they would be going up, not connected here. Now, one other thing I would say is when you have your ductus deferens and you have blood vessels surrounding it, it's called the spermatic cord. So the spermatic cord is blood vessels plus this tube, but we're basically practicing the flow of sperm and what's going on. So the ductus deferens is going to be to travel. You should read over the spermatic cord as it's something that you need to know, but that's not what this video is about. All right, so it starts at the testes, it goes to the epididymis, and now after sperm's matured, a guy's ready to ejaculate, the ductus deferens is going to transport sperm right here to the ejaculatory duct. So it leaves the epididymis. These arrows represent that it's leaving, sperm is leaving. So it goes to the ductus deferens. AKA the vas deferens. Literally, it's a long tube. The word ejaculation literally means to shoot forth. So during ejaculation, this is going to transport sperm to the, I'm going to change colors for this, ejaculatory duct. Now, I have some stuff to say about these ejaculatory duct. So, the vas deferens is going to bring sperm to the ejaculatory duct. Now, your ejaculatory duct makes up two basic things. Your seminal vesicle, which is right here, is a gland that produces a lot of different fluids, is also going to release fluids into the ejaculatory duct before the sperm enters into the urethra. So the ejaculatory duct is a fusion of the ductus deferens and the duct from the seminal vesicle. So I need to label these things. I'm going to label it on this side. The seminal vesicle is on both sides. Your ejaculatory duct is a fusion of the ductus deferens and the seminal vesicle. That's why there's two right here. So make this just a hair longer. The ejaculatory duct is going to be a combination of the tube that empties the ductus deferens and empties the seminal vesicle. That is what the ejaculatory duct is. It's the combination of the two. I'm not going to write any notes on here. Not for that. I can't. So, out here, it's not connected to the ductus deferens. You have your seminal vesicle. Now, the word vesicle literally means to store substances. It looks like a gland. It literally is a gland. So this is going to produce substances that your sperm needs. So your sperm, if you think about it like this, it's a story. From here to here, it just needs to mature, but this is a long journey for sperm. Look how long that is. So after sperm have to go up the ductus deferens, that's a long journey. So when it gets to the ejaculatory duct, the seminal vesicle needs to give it more nutrients because it's still got a long way out. So here, as the sperm travel up, they create waste products. So they become acidic and they need more sugar. So glycogen's here, but then they need more sugar to get energy to go out of the penis into the vagina, all the way through the uterus, into the fallopian tube to basically fertilize the egg. We fertilize the egg in the fallopian tube. That's like really, really far. So the seminal vesicle is gonna have to give it energy for its journey. But it also has to produce an alkaline fluid because it produced waste products. So there's a lot of acid that's produced by sperm traveling on its journey. So there's a lot of different alkaline fluids that's going to be produced. But this one is also going to produce other things. So when we talk about the seminal vesicle, it's a gland. It stores a lot of different things. It's going to produce an alkaline fluid. To neutralize the acid, so it's going to help with pH. It's going to produce fructose. Fructose is fruit sugar to give it energy. I'm not going to write that out. I don't have room. But it's also going to produce prostaglandins. Now, prostaglandins literally are going to make the muscles in the female, the vagina, contract like this to push sperm up the vagina, into the uterus, and into the fallopian tubes. So literally, this causes muscle contractions in the female. So as it exits, it's gonna basically be released into the female, and the female's vagina is gonna start to contract to help push sperm further into the reproductive system. Literally, the seminal vesicle is helping the sperm on its journey to help it into the female, to help force it up further into the female, to give it energy through fructose. So this is going to cause muscle contractions in the female. Again, I'm running out of room. I'm not going to write that, but you should know what each one of these do. So from here, sperm is released into the urethra. So your urethra is next, and your urethra is in 3 sections. This purple section is called the prostatic urethra because this is the prostate gland. This right here is called the membranous urethra, which is surrounded by the bulbourethral glands. And then where the penis is, this is called the spongy urethra. So you have 3 areas of your urethra. Sperm is now entering into the urethra, and everything else, if it's a gland, is going to produce substances that go into the urethra. However, we learned that the penis is for passage of urine and as well as semen, which is sperm plus all the stuff. But that's where this is going to come in. So we literally are going to now allow sperm to go into the prostatic urethra, but at the same time, the seminal vesicle is going to release these 3 substances into the urethra. So from here, this empties into the urethra, which is going to be broken into 3 sections. The first section is going to be the prostatic urethra, which is surrounded by the prostate. The next section is going to be the membranous urethra. And the third one is going to be the spongy urethra, which is in the penis. So it's easy just to draw these out like that. 1, 2, and 3. If you wanted to, technically, you could, put that right here. That's the prostatic urethra, the membranous urethra, and then all of this section would be the spongy urethra. 1, 2, 3. I don't really have room to write it. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the prostatic urethra. All right, now your prostate. The prostate gland is going to release substances into the prostatic urethra. The prostate gland is about the size of a walnut or the egg size. It is the first gland that is going to surround the urethra. So sperm enters into the prostatic urethra. So the prostate gland is an accessory structure. However, it's going to secrete substances into the prostatic urethra. So this is just going to help the sperm along the way. So, from the prostate into the prostatic urethra, again, it's egg size. It's a gland. This one is going to secrete a thin, keyword milky, alkaline fluid. Anytime you produce an alkaline fluid, it's going to help with the pH. Now, it's different. It's a milky alkaline fluid. That's the key word. That's how you know the difference between seminal vesicle also produces fructose and prostaglandins. This one produces a milky alkaline fluid to help with the pH. Now, this goes into the urethra. Now, it continues on. It leaves the prostate. Sperm now has all these fluids and these fluids, and it goes to the membranous urethra. Now, the membranous urethra is surrounded by your bulbal urethral glands. So, membranous urethra, this tiny little section, is surrounded by the bulbo urethral glands. This is like the size of a marble. There's 2 of them, marble size. They're tiny, so egg size or walnut size and then marble size. So your bulbourethral gland marble size is now going to release a substance into the urethra as well. Now this one is a lot different than the prostate gland. However, it's not too different because it's still going to produce an alkaline fluid. Now, technically, this one is going to be activated before all the other ones. This one is going to produce a thick alkaline fluid. Which is mucus-like. It's very thick. Now, the reason that males will produce this thick alkaline fluid is whenever they have sexual stimulation or sexual arousal, this is going to lubricate the end of the penis prior to sexual intercourse, and it is going to neutralize urine, which is acidic, remaining in the urethra. So this is produced before ejaculation. It's going to neutralize any urine that's left in the penis and the spongy urethra. So technically this happens first at sexual arousal, so that as sperm goes through, it doesn't die from acid. So the bulbourethral gland is marble size. So the next area is it's going to go into the spongy urethra, which surrounds the penis. So I have a lot to cover on that. So for here, we can just draw 3. The spongy urethra is next. It is going to be surrounded by the penis. Specifically, it's going to be surrounded by an erectile tissue called the corpus spongiosum. So sperm exits the spongy urethra at the external urethral orifice. Now, I'm going to go into detail about this last section, so I don't want you to worry too much about this. We could go ahead and label this. This blue is called the corpus spongiosum, which is an erectile tissue of the penis. So, the corpus spongiosum does surround the spongy urethra, and then it's going to exit at the external urethral orifice, which is right here. So, to review, sperm is produced in the testes at the seminiferous tubules by spermatogenic cells. It then is going to mature in the epididymis with the presence of the chemical glucagon. During ejaculation, ductus deferens transports the sperm to the ejaculatory duct, which is going to meet up with the seminal vesicle. At the same time, the seminal vesicle is going to release alkaline fluid, fructose, and prostaglandins. So sperm plus fluids empty into the urethra. It goes to the prostate urethra first. The prostate then releases a thin, milky alkaline fluid. Sperm travels down to the membranous urethra, where the bulbourethral gland has already lubricated the end of the penis and has neutralized the acid in the spongy urethra. So sperm travels through the spongy urethra. It's called spongy urethra because the penis has an erectile tissue called corpus spongiosum, and sperm exits out the external urethral orifice. So, ejaculation is to shoot forth. So, semen is the end product of what exits the external urethral orifice. So, it includes several things. It includes sperm from the testes, it also includes secretions. You should be able to go through and list all the secretions from the seminal vesicle and what they do. It also has secretions from the prostate gland. Has a function. And the bulbourethral glands. Most secretions are going to come from the seminal vesicle because it has the most. It is slightly semen is slightly alkaline. It does include prostaglandins. You should know what prostaglandins do. And nutrients. I wonder where those nutrients come from. Now, if you're talking about semen, the amount of semen that a guy ejaculates is going to vary. So it can either be 2.5 to 5 milliliters depending on the guy. And also the sperm count matters, with roughly anywhere from 40 to 750 million sperm cells. So if you ever get like down in the dump, think about it. You were the one. You were the strongest sperm cell that made it. If you wanted to do some math, take 5 times 750 million. Say your dad was really fertile. If he produced 5 milliliters of semen and there were 750 million per milliliter of sperm cells, I guess I should put that somewhere, per milliliter. You were the strongest one. That's something. So when we talk about semen, semen is going to be what's ejaculated from a guy. So we went through all the steps. Now the last thing that we really need to cover is we need to go into more detail about the penis so that I can finish this whole anatomy. So last step, before I start a new video anyway, we're gonna go through the penis. Now, we've talked about all the things so far. The gonads are the primary organs because this is where we produce sperm and hormones. The ducts transport sperm. The urethra is included in that. Accessory sex organs are going to secrete substances to help sperm along its way. Now we have the external reproductive structures. So the penis is included on this because the penis has to basically help get the sperm to the vagina. He delivers and assists in adjoining the gametes. So the only way that the penis can basically deliver these gametes is it has to become erect. So first of all, it conveys urine and semen outside of the body. Now there is 3 columns of erectile tissue. So when we talk about the erectile tissue, the erectile tissue includes this corpus spongiosum, but it also includes this corpus cavernosum. All of this includes the penis. So, corpus cavernosum. Now, on either side, on the posterior aspect, is the corpus cavernosum. So there's only one corpus spongiosum, but the corpus cavernosum is 2 dorsal columns. So there are 3 columns of erectile tissue. So if we did a cross section, it's easier to see. All right, this is if you cut the penis so that you can see the erectile tissue. Now, on the back, you have this corpus cavernosum. There's 2 of them. They're on the dorsal aspect. There's 2 of them. Now, inside of the corpus cavernosum are arteries. These arteries are going to increase blood flow to the penis, and when the blood fills up the penis, it becomes erect. Now, corpus cavernosum basically has really large cavities so that it can fill up with blood. Literally helps it stand up. It has to become engorged with blood. Now, your external urethral orifice is basically how urine is going to exit. So, external urethral orifice is how sperm exits. That's right there. Now, around your urethra is your spongy urethra. So your corpus spongiosum surrounds the urethra. It's also considered an erectile tissue. It's called corpus spongiosum. It looks literally like a sponge. Now, it doesn't have really large areas like the corpus cavernosum, but it still fills up with blood as well. Corpora spongiosum surrounds the external urethral orifice. So we have 3 columns of erectile tissue. These 3 columns of erectile tissue is you have the corpora cavernosum and the one corpora spongiosum. These fill up with blood in order for a guy to have erection. Now, when we talk about the corpora spongiosum, there is a thickening of the corpora spongiosum. The thickening of the corpora spongiosum that you see right here is called the glans penis. I'm going to write that on the bottom of this one. So technically, if it is tagged down here, it's glans penis. Corpora spongiosum, I'll tag it a little higher for the lab practical, but it's all still really the same thing. So your glans penis is the enlargement of the corpora spongiosum. All of this includes the penis. Of course, I didn't draw that on here, but basically it is the last male reproductive structure that I need to cover. Other than the scrotum. The scrotum, you're going to have to read about. I can't draw the scrotum and the dartos and the cremaster or the spermatic cord. This I can draw. This I can explain. So that is pretty much male reproductive in a nutshell. I do have other things to cover, but that's all I can cover in this video.